sung the words, "Come, now is the time to worship," you've sung Brian Doerksen. If you've ever prayed the words, "Refiner's fire, my heart's one desire," that's Brian Doerksen too. For more than 3 decades, this one man's songs have shaped how millions of Christians around the world open their mouths on a Sunday morning. On July 21st, at 6:45 in the morning, Brian Doerksen died peacefully in his sleep, at home, surrounded by the people who loved him most. Today we're going to walk through his final weeks, what his family shared with the world, and why a songwriter most casual churchgoers couldn't pick out of a lineup ended up writing the soundtrack to modern worship. The timeline moves fast, and it's worth laying out plainly. July 10th, Doerksen's family announced he'd been hospitalized. He'd been living with severe, undiagnosed pain for months. Scans found a mass in his pelvis, along with spots on his liver, lungs, and near his heart. A colonoscopy and biopsies followed, with results expected within the week. July 17th, the family confirmed the diagnosis, stage 4 cancer. The specific type was still being determined, but treatment and pain management had already begun. A GoFundMe was launched to help with medical costs. July 20th, a sharper, harder update. Doerksen's kidneys had failed. His family said doctors had done everything they could, and that from here, the goal was simply comfort. Their words, "Every day he's still with us. We are calling a gift. Every moment truly holy." July 21st, 6:45 a.m. Brian Doerksen passed away at his family home. 11 days, start to finish. For a lot of us watching from a distance, it felt sudden. For his family, it was an 11-day round-the-clock vigil. The statement his family posted the morning he died is worth reading in full, because it tells you something about the kind of man he was, even at the very end. On July 21st, at 6:45 a.m., our beloved Brian passed away peacefully in his sleep, at his family home, surrounded by those who loved him most. Thank you to the entire community around the world that prayed, gave, and sent incredible messages of love. Till the very end, Brian continued to love those around him, encouraging them in who they are, and shared incredible gratitude to those in the medical field who tried their best to help him. He was a beacon of light, even in his final moments, to his close family and friends, and loved well right to the end. May we all be like him, to love freely, be kind, and grateful, even in the midst of the hardest of times. A man being told there was nothing left to do, and he spent that time encouraging the people around him and thanking the doctors trying to save him. Watching how someone dies tells you a lot about how they actually lived, and by every account, Brian Doerksen lived and died the same way, outward-facing. For those who didn't grow up in worship music circles, here's the shape of his career. Brian Doerksen was born and raised in Abbotsford, British Columbia. He came up through vineyard music in the 80s and 90s, then moved to integrity music, becoming one of the defining voices of what we now just call modern worship. The shift away from hymnals and towards simple, congregational, guitar and piano songs that any church, anywhere, could learn and sing together. He didn't just write songs from a distance either. He served as a worship pastor, helped plant the Bridge Church in Abbotsford, and later directed the School of Worship Arts at Prairie Bible Institute, training the next generation of worship leaders. His catalog includes some of the most sung songs in the English-speaking church. "Come Now is the Time to Worship," "Refiner's Fire," "Faithful One," "Hope of the Nations," and "Light the Fire Again." He picked up a Dove Award, a Juno Award, multiple GMA Canada Covenant Awards, and a Lifetime Achievement Award along the way. But if you talk to worship leaders, the awards aren't really the point. The point is that these songs are still being sung, unattributed, by congregations who have no idea who wrote them. That's the kind of legacy that doesn't show up on a resume. Fellow songwriter Matt Redman, who counted "Faithful One" among his own favorite worship songs, said he was so deeply gutted by the news, and credited Doerksen as a constant personal encouragement across their years of ministry together. Within hours of the announcement, the family's social media page filled up with tributes from some of the biggest names in worship music. It's worth going through a handful of them, because together, they paint a pretty consistent picture of who this man actually was off stage. Paul Baloche, a longtime friend and co-writer, remembered years of writing songs together at Doerksen's studio and touring across Canada. He wrote, "Goodbye, friend. Love you, Brian. We'll miss you on this earth. As you reminded us, one day, every tongue will confess you are God. One day, every knee will bow, Still, the greatest treasure remains for those who gladly choose you now. I will never forget your generous hospitality around the family table, writing songs together in your Shining Rose studio, and ministering together on several tours across Canada. You taught me much about lament through your words, your songs, and your life. Thank you for Refiner's Fire, Light the Fire Again, and 100 more songs that pointed us all to Jesus. Until we meet again. Darlene Zschech called him a hero of the faith, writing that she was grateful his family had shared him with us all. Matt Redman said he was deeply gutted by the news and named Faithful One his all-time favorite worship song, adding that Doerksen had always been such an encouragement to me personally. Jen Johnson of Bethel Music kept it simple. What a special man. Love you, Doerksen family. Contemporary artist Brandon Heath said Doerksen left quite an impression on him after just one meeting years ago. British singer-songwriter Philippa Hanna put it this way: "The world has lost a light, and Jesus has gained a faithful servant." Pat Barrett's tribute was 2 words and a heart emoji. Brian Har. Ben Fielding, co-writer of What a Beautiful Name, thanked Doerksen for all of the songs, the ministry, and example, calling him a hero and an inspiration. Aaron Williams wrote simply, "Well done, Brian," an echo of the parable, faithful servant to faithful servant. Aaron Schust said he was grateful for Brian's example and leadership, crediting him with leading us to worship the greatest treasure. Dutch worship leader Ali Davendijk chose to let Doerksen's own words speak. She posted the chorus of Faithful One in full as her tribute. And music executive Al Gordon remembered the man behind the songs. Such a sweet man, kind, humble, and with a twinkle in his eye. The Worship Leaders Collective summed up the collective mood of the week in 4 words. What a gift. What a legacy. What jumps out reading through all of these isn't really the music. It's how many of them talk about him personally. Kind, humble, encouraging, generous, hospitable. Over and over, different people, same words. This channel spends most of its time covering the parts of Christian ministry that go wrong, the cover-ups, the mishandled resignations, the institutions that fail the people they're supposed to protect. That work matters, and it's not going anywhere. But it's worth pausing, every so often, to talk about someone who simply did the work well. No scandal to untangle here. No statement to fact-check against a leaked memo. Just 11 days of a family choosing gratitude in the middle of the worst thing that ever happened to them. And a man who spent his final hours thinking about everyone except himself. If you want actually to carry something forward from this, it's not really about Brian Doerksen, the public figure. It's the 4 lines his family closed their statement with, because it doubles as instruction. May we all be like him, to love freely, be kind, and grateful, even in the midst of the hardest of times. Brian Doerksen was 61 years old. He's survived by his wife Joyce and their family, who've asked that instead of flowers, people consider giving to the GoFundMe, supporting his medical costs. If this channel matters to you, whether it's the accountability stories or moments like this one, the way you support it is by subscribing and sharing the video. I'll see you in the next one.
I wrote Come Now Is a Time to Worship walking these London streets in 1997. I was at one of the lowest ebbs of my life after the collapse of the Father's House musical put us on the edge of bankruptcy, as well as learning that our son had Fragile X syndrome. It was in that season that I was offered a job in London, England for Vineyard Churches, and our family moved here from Canada. One morning I was walking these London streets and I heard this ringing out, "Come, now is the time to worship." I looked up to the heavens. Now? That's why I wrote lines like "Come just as you are" into the song. I needed to remind myself that I could come even though I had unresolved questions and life was difficult. That year, I met and became friends with Catherine Scott, who sings this version of the song with me in 2007.